Awesome. Okay, Mina joined us. We can kick things off and get things started. So just want to say welcome to everyone. We're really excited to be hosting you guys today. My name's Georgia. I'm our women's community manager here for our Google for Startup Women Founders community. This is our June event, and we are going to dive into human-centered AI and really how to communicate the value of AI to your customers today. So before we meet our facilitator and jump into the content, we have just a few housekeeping items, which I'm sure everyone's pretty familiar with. So we would ask that people keep their cameras on today. It just helps us better connect to everyone. If you have a question, feel free to shout it out in the chat, raise your hand, be bold. This is just a time for us to connect and have fun and learn. And then of course, if you're not speaking, keep your audio muted, just so there's no background noise. So just a little bit of context on our community here. So the Women's Founders Groups came from Google for Startups Accelerator Program. And we recognized that there was underrepresentation, of the women founder experience. And so we created this community as a safe space to connect with other female founders, female leaders, to really just connect and learn from each other. So we're able to pull from our Google for Startup resources, and that's kind of how we give you guys the best in class trainings and workshops. Since these events are primarily virtual, it's created opportunities for us to connect all over the world. So we can see people from Austria, Haiti, here in the US. So lots of opportunity to connect with women all over the world. You also have the opportunity to join our Slack channel. So this is just where we can connect and share about events that are happening kind of near us. So definitely encourage people to join that. And I'll post a form in the chat if you'd like to submit that and join our community via Slack. So some goals today and just in our community as well, we just want to create a space where you connect with other like-minded women, provide resources to push your businesses forward and grow, and really position women founders as a role model for other entrepreneurs. So keep an eye out throughout the year for events and opportunities surrounding these pillars. Lastly, we ask that you please provide us feedback on our sessions. It's how we learn and grow and make these even better. So I will be posting this link in the chat as well, and it will be available at the end of our content today. Okay, now getting on to the fun part, I'd love to introduce our speaker today, Mina. She is an interaction designer here at Google, where she previously supported people in AI research for PAIR, which is Google's privacy first data solution. And now she supports Google Assist. So it's a Google voice assistant anchored in AI. And she's really passionate about bringing AI-focused products to life and really connecting people and AI. So yeah, Mina, I would love to give you the mic here and share with us today.
Awesome. Well, thanks. Thank you for that introduction. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay. Oh gosh, did that work? Okay. All right, I'll go ahead and get started. I'm really excited to talk to you all a little bit more about human-centered AI. Really the goal today just to introduce y'all to this resource that is available online, and hopefully get you and your teams engaged with some of that content. So we are a little short in time, but maybe as I go through, I'm just always curious to know who's in the room. So if you don't mind going ahead in the chat, just sharing a little bit more about your name, and your role that you play in your teams, that would be just helpful context for me. But just again, for time, I'm going to keep moving forward, but I will be keeping an eye on the chat. Okay. Before I go fully in, please interrupt me if you have any questions. Want this to be as engaging and as much of a dialogue as we can make it. So PAIR stands for the People Plus AI Research Group here at Google. It's a team of UXers, product folks, engineers, and research scientists that focus on understanding AI and how to usher in this new era in a human-centered way. We're here to talk about the People Plus AI Research Guidebook 2.0. This launched for the first time at I/O in 2019. We refreshed it and re-released it in 2021. And as I'm sure many of you are well aware, things continue to evolve at a rapid pace. So hoping that we can get V3 out there soon, but excited to share 2.0 with y'all today. Okay, so what is the guidebook? The URL is here. It is available online to everyone. It is a resource and toolkit that helps product teams apply a human-centered approach to building features and products with AI. It just really helps ensure that the time and resources that you invest in building AI make a really big impact and keep the users first. This guidebook synthesizes everything that we here at Google have learned in recent years about designing and building AI products, and it's based off of data and insights from over 100 contributors across Google and Alphabet. So I just want to give a shout out to all the folks here that worked on putting this resource together. Again, you can find this at pair.withgoogle.com/guidebook. All right, so some of the things that have changed in 2.0, 1.0 really had a lot of awesome content, but something that we heard again and again is, well, how do we act upon it? How do we put these materials in practice? And so that's really the big delta you'll see between 1.0 and 2.0. So things like product examples, case studies, and exercises. So really just added some more of that. We also have design patterns. I think, like I said, even though this came out in 2021, I think we are currently living in the age of large language models, or LLMs. But I do think that a lot of these design patterns are evergreen. I think that good UX is good UX. I think a lot of what you'll see in the guidebook are still very much relevant today, even with these newer AI technologies in place. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about human-centered AI. The TLDR is that and something that perhaps all of us are well aware of, is that while we as humans are, brilliant, we are also flawed and have biases that intentionally and sometimes unintentionally shape every facet of machine learning and AI. So there's this kind of understanding of machine learning system that you define a goal, you pour in a bunch of data, the more the better, and you'll get your answer, and you're perfectly working unbiased system as a result. But when we actually start to unpack the human influence on each parts of this process, we are the ones that are conducting it, and we make a lot of implicit and explicit choices along the way. So we choose the data sources. We choose what is considered successful. We determine those evaluation metrics, and we are the ones that get affected by the results, or our users are the ones that get affected by these results. So it's really important that every step along the way we consider, well, what data is included, what data isn't included, what is that data set itself, and is there biases within the data set, where it comes from, how the model is tuned for success. And so that's really why I think maintaining this human-centered approach is so important, because not only is it designing the models, it's really designing the process at large, in how we build and train these models and deploy it into the world. Okay, I'll go back to other things. All right, so then how do we weave in more human-centered design? So in order to kind of unpack that, I'm hoping that we can walk through some of the design patterns in the guidebook. Like I said, we have 23 design patterns. They are filtered by these questions that hopefully help you navigate through that set. We also created these 3 apps just to walk you through some of those design patterns. We have a fitness app, a plant identification app, and then a chatbot. Okay. So the first pattern I'm hoping that we can talk through is perhaps the first question we should all be asking is whether or not AI even adds value. So AI is better at some things than others, and I think it's really important that we're making sure that it's the right technology for the user problem that you're solving. I think more often than not, it feels like AI is a solution looking for a problem. And so it's really important that we take a step back, we understand, well, what are we trying to solve? What are the user needs here? And is AI actually the right way to address those? And so AI is well suited for things like recommending different content to different users. So something like recommendation systems, movie suggestions, things like that. Sometimes even predicting future events like weather or flight prices, natural language understanding, image recognition, things like that. Whereas a rule or heuristic-based solution might be better in other ways. So they might be better when actually maintaining predictability is really important for your needs. When users or customers or even developers need complete transparency on how you are producing some of those solutions or output. Or sometimes if people just don't want their tasks to be automated. And I think there's really great content in the guidebook about automation versus augmentation. So when it's better to just help augment tasks versus automating them. So it's also important to consider that as well. So the aim for avoid example on the screen here is using AI when a predictive system can create a valuable personalized experience that can't exist without it. So for example, for recommending workouts to folks, being able to filter through the larger set based off of their workout history. But it may not always be helpful. So maybe it's not helpful to recommend workouts based off of the music you like. In this case, maybe more heuristics or manual control can create a better experience. And so because AI is still new, we, like I said, see a lot more of a tech-first approach. I think maybe you've seen it, I've seen it, of teams just saying, we have to deliver 10 AI features in the next month. And so we really try to encourage folks to flip that question from a technology first one to a people first one. So instead of saying, can we use AI to do blank, thinking more about how might we solve blank and can AI solve it in a unique way. And it sounds pretty straightforward. It's not always that straightforward. And so in order to determine what is a good fit, it might be helpful to evaluate problems on user impact and AI need. So whether or not the AI can solve the problem in a unique way. And the lights are dimming on me. Okay. And it's important to understand both the benefits and maybe even unintended consequences of incorporating AI. And also knowing that AI itself isn't free. I think as many of you might be aware, it's complicated to build, it's complicated to design for. So sometimes a simpler solution has that added benefit of being easier to build, explain, debug, and maintain. Any questions so far? No. Okay, cool. All right, so like I said, and again, we can share the slides, Georgia. I can send these over to you as well to distribute more widely. But again, more guidance on when AI is probably better and when it may not be a better solution. Okay, so now would love to get your thoughts here. So have some examples on the screen. Perhaps we can put your responses in the chat. So curious your thoughts just based off of what we just discussed or what I just shared. For this first example of showing dynamic content is more enjoyable than a predictable, interface, do we think AI could be a good fit for that? We got a yes. Okay, cool. I'm seeing a no. Okay, can the person that if you were willing to share talk a little bit more about why it's a no for you? Or does anybody have thoughts on a yes or no for this first for A here? Accuracy, yeah, that's fair. Any other thoughts for this first one on whether or not AI could be a good fit? It's this guy. Or is there any other examples on the slide that feel a little bit more blurry of whether or not it could be a good fit? Yeah, absolutely. I think that that's something that we hear a lot of recommendations are the most helpful when they're relevant. So relevance becomes really important there. But perhaps it's also important to think of the risk, right? So what is the risk of being wrong? Not to pick on Netflix, but they might not always recommend the best content or the most relevant content to me, but maybe that's low risk, maybe that's okay. So I think that that's something else to consider as well of the risk and the benefit. Oh, yes, a hand.
Yes. So, like maybe that's my thought process that here it's mentioned that showing dynamic content is more enjoyable. So I believe that if it's dynamic, then it can be programmed easily. So maybe AI is not needed if we don't need a predictable interface.
Yeah, no, I appreciate, thank you for sharing a little bit more about your thinking there. I think one challenge with AI, especially when we use it to generate recommendations, is that predictability can actually be difficult, right? So if you go to Google Drive, for example, where there's file suggestions that we might recommend to you, and if you refresh that page, you may see a different set of files up top, right? Or similar with Netflix. If I say recommended for you and I show you a bunch of movies and TV shows, if I refresh that screen or come back tomorrow, that might change. So the predictability actually becomes a little bit more difficult there for using AI to populate a set of recommendations. So I think for A, when it's actually, you want it to be dynamic, you want it to be fresh, you want it to continue to adapt and evolve to your preferences and behaviors. That's when AI might actually be more helpful than essentially hard coding a set of items to show, which would provide more of that predictability. Any other thoughts on this first one or any of the other scenarios on this slide that y'all think is interesting or, it could go either way?
Well, I was just thinking that, people are already using AI to generate, really surprising image combinations. And so I think part of that is the unexpected outcomes that an AI is going to provide, whether it's, giving you additional fingers or making the world slightly different than a human might represent it with the same set of criteria. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this new, realm of generative AI has really unleashed a lot of creativity there and helping folks bring things to life in really dynamic and cool ways. And of course, again, with that predictability and reliability, that's what's perhaps so interesting, right? We don't know what it's about to output and how you can help provide some of those safeguards or scaffolding that folks might be looking for. Any other thoughts on this slide? I can move us along. Okay. Cool.
Like I would like to
Yeah.
here, if the speed of development and getting to market is needed, so in that case, AI can be used because it is really fast. So there, I think AI can be a good fit.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, yeah, depending on how your teams are staffed and then how mature the AI technology that you're using is. I think, of course, like, we're seeing a lot with the LLMs, like they're a little bit more nascent. There might be a little bit more training and things that might need to happen, but yeah, absolutely could help you get there. Yeah, depending where y'all are in your process, we can get there sooner or later. Cool. Okay, well, thank you all for sharing. It's always an interesting discussion because it could really go either way, just depending on your needs and your resourcing. All right, I'll go to the next one, and I think this one is one that I'm always really excited to talk a little bit more about, and that's all about expectations. So being really transparent with the users on what your AI-powered product can and cannot do. And this is so important because AI systems are inherently probabilistic. So your system will likely give an incorrect or unexpected output at some point. So even if we don't detect it or classify it as an error, it may not match the user's expectations. So it still may feel incorrect to the user. And so this makes it so important that you help users calibrate their expectations about system functionality and output. And one way to do that is to be more transparent with both its capabilities and its limitations. So for example, indicating that a prediction could be wrong might cause a user to trust that particular prediction less. But in the long term, users may use or rely your product more because they're less likely to over-trust your system and be disappointed. And so we have two examples here. So this first one is really trying to be clear about the scope of this AI system, right? So saying that this is just in the US, it helps identify this number of plant types, and it helps you determine if they're safe for adults, cats, and dogs, let's say. This is especially important in a more high stakes situation like this one if you're trying to determine if a plant is safe or dangerous. The one that would encourage folks to avoid is when we kind of go a little bit too far in over-promising what the AI can do, right? So you can use it to identify any plant and determine if it's safe for any person or any pet. And so this is starting to set really high expectations and suggesting that it works perfectly. And again, especially in these high stakes situations that the tech isn't yet reliable. Yes, absolutely, Judith. And I think that that's something that we should be doing up front. And there's certainly in setup and onboarding, and something that we should do, continue to do over time, right? Continue to calibrate expectations to ensure that the mental model is aligned with what the product can do. And especially as a product continues to evolve and grow over time, right? So you're constantly trying to adjust folks' expectations about that output. So certainly, absolutely upfront, it's really important, and one that I would encourage to treat as this ongoing process of every single time your user is interacting with the system, that is continually informing their expectation, right? It's similar to meeting another person. You get that first impression about that person and who they are, what they can do, but every interaction you have with that person informs that, right? And so I think it's important to absolutely do it upfront and treat it as ongoing, not just a single moment, but a process that you carry throughout the life cycle of your product and relationship with users. With that being said, I am curious to get your thoughts on this example on the slide. So imagine you're creating an AI-powered app that gives estimated nutritional information based on a photo of a dish. In testing, we know that it works better on some types of food than others. It does often underestimate the amount of calories and sugar in desserts. It works more reliably for healthier foods. So let's say you're about to release the beta version and you don't have time to resolve any of those issues. Let's say this is the current description that you are about to communicate to your users. Is there anything that you would change here to better set expectations?
I mean, you could already mention that it's beta.
Okay, yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Also, like we can mention that like since it does not work good on desserts, then we can mention that everything on your plate except desserts. Probably.
Yep. Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I think everything, it always sounds really, impactful and powerful, but yeah, absolutely calling out desserts, especially if we know it doesn't work for desserts. Yes, highlighting test phase. I think as mentioned earlier, that it's beta, so it's in testing, it's still learning. Absolutely. I'm gonna look at some of the other comments here. Key, remove, yeah. Yeah, I don't know if y'all can see it on the screen, but all and every time are bolded. So really try to call attention to those in the description as it's shown to you right now.
And it's not going to replace like a professional who's licensed and this kind of thing. So
yeah, and I think that's a similar comment I'm seeing in the chat too, of like, don't just rely on this. Like you still might want to talk to a professional. And so yes, absolutely clarifying its role perhaps in someone's diet planning. I don't see where it mentions who it was made for, if that makes sense. Yeah, I'm curious, how would you phrase that? How might you clarify the intended audience or use of this app?
yeah, it's a tool. It's a helper.
Uh-huh.
like
Yeah.
what Judith or Judith, I don't know how to pronounce it, but yeah, it's a tool or it's a helper or it's an aid.
Yeah. It's not an expert, it's not a one-stop shop. Absolutely. It's something to use in conjunction with other perhaps resources.
Yeah, I agree with that. I would also say it uses AI to analyze what's on your plate and recommends dietary choices. So leaving out the right all the time and things like that.
Yeah, and I think that you just said something really interesting of like recommends, right? So it's not necessarily giving you the answer, not suggesting that you don't also perhaps use your own judgment or perhaps get another opinion or point of view there. So I think that word itself, I think, is really interesting.
Yeah, exactly. Because what about false positives, false negatives, things like that? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's all super helpful. Yes, every time is really broad. Yeah, I think some type of disclaimer. I'm less familiar with any health and wellness products, but I assume that a disclaimer is always helpful to include. Just to clarify that this isn't replacing you seeing a dietitian or a nutritionist.
Probably we can also mention that it uses AI to analyze. It tries to give you all the information and like make the right choices most of the times. Probably.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Well, appreciate all your thoughts here. I think that as y'all are hopefully quickly realizing, it's really important how we verbalize this. And I think that I've worked a lot on onboarding, and I think that we want to get folks excited. We want to get the buy-in. We want to get adoption up front. And so it might lean a little bit too far into over-promising what the product can do. But it's also important to clarify what it can't do. And like I said, while that might upfront in the moment think, oh, like I'm not going to trust this as much, over time it actually builds a more sustainable relationship with your users to help calibrate that and set that up front. because, you know, we've seen the other side of when we overpromise and underdeliver, and that actually in the longer term doesn't help with retention and churn. So I think it's really important that we're very intentional with what we're communicating to our users up front, and again, as they interact with the product over time. Just seeing some more comments in here. Yeah, yes. Yeah, I think absolutely being a lot more clear that it's beta and maybe not every time. Awesome. Okay, it sounds like we all are in alignment here. Well, thank you for that quick exercise. I'll move us to the next one, which is kind of in the same vein of explainability, on how we talk to our users about this product. And one thing is, and again, might seem pretty straightforward, but really just explaining the benefit, not the technology. And I think it's really important that we're helping users understand our capabilities, but in a way that helps them understand the benefit or value of it, not so much the technology that's powering it. I think that AI is exciting. I think that can be a differentiator, but when it comes to folks and what's easier to grok, what's easier to understand, I think it's really important that we're clarifying the utilization of the technology, not necessarily the tech itself. And some ways that we can figure out how to best explain this to our users is running user studies and answering questions like, what do users need to know about how the system works in order to understand and use your product? Why is this knowledge helpful to your users? And that level of technical detail will likely vary just depending on the product and your users. Yes, absolutely. I think that there's certain folks that might be curious, maybe your developers, maybe even policy and legal folks. But when it comes to your end user, probably not. I think they care more about the benefit and the value more than the mechanics, if you will. So some examples that we have on the screen, like I said, we have this OWL, an educational chatbot. So what the left side shows is, you know, OWL is an educational tool that adapts to your learning style. It's available anytime to help you achieve your educational goals. So really clarifying that underlying technology is enabling the experience to be more tailored, right, to the user, but also that it is always available to them. On the right, we kind of go over-index on the technology, right? Like an innovative AI-based chatbot that leverages neural conversational model and natural language processing and techniques. I would probably argue most people are like, what does that mean? Why would I use this? Might sound really cool, but like, what does that actually mean to me? So being very intentional about how we talk about the technology and our intention for doing so. And again, kind of going back to the earlier point, like sometimes that can also inflate expectations if it just sounds like it's very powerful, can do all of the things, right? So it can also lead to misunderstandings for folks that might be less familiar with what some of these techniques are. Okay, so we're going to run through some of these, but we have a set of descriptions and would be very curious how effective you think they are and what you might change to make them more effective. So we have the first one, Smart Gym. I don't know why all these examples are so health focused, but here we are. And it is the future of at-home workouts. So it's the smartest home workout system and personalized coach. It adapts to your personal strengths. It's a simple design so you can work out without clutter and you get unlimited personalized workouts. What are folks' reactions? Do we feel like ship it, it's good to go? Is there anything that you might change?
I think it sounds like marketing copy. I mean,
Okay,
like,
yeah.
yeah, it doesn't sound like too ridiculous.
Okay. Yeah. I hear you. I hear you. Yeah, Cecile.
I agree that it sounds nice from like a marketing standpoint, but I don't think it's doing what it needs to do in terms of showing people the value of the product, which is slightly
Okay.
different than either the way you market it or the branding or the specifications. Like, I'm not hearing like adapts to your personal strengths so that you can get stronger, faster, smarter, something. It's not like connected in a way that I think is digestible for the person reading it to buy it.
Nice. Okay, I hear you. So it seems like it's maybe highlighting some of the features, but not necessarily the value of those features. Okay. Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. Any other thoughts about this first one? Would anybody be like, absolutely not, that is not leaving, like that's not going out the door? Yeah, Justine, okay. Okay. Yeah, okay. Fair enough. I'll say like I'm not too like, about it, could be better. But yes, absolutely. It's always interesting, like what is the right first impression we want to make to our users, and how what's gonna get their interest and also help set those expectations up front. I'm definitely not ready to show. Okay, let's move to the next one. All right, the future of driving is here. All our cars come with the latest advanced technology for fully automated autopilot and self-driving experiences. Our computer processors are 50 times faster than any other car on the market, running our proprietary neural net, the basis of our self-driving features. All cars are equipped with state-of-the-art visual recognition systems via 360-degree camera coverage. Note that due to current regulation, all features will still require driver supervision. All right, thoughts, reactions. All right, getting it too technical, way too much tech. Okay. Any other, are folks in alignment with that, or anyone think that maybe it's okay?
It's kind of repetitive also, right? Like automated autopilot of the self-driving. It's
I feel like also it kind of oversells it first and then kills it with that last sentence.
Just be hooking them in, and then letting them know.
It's like negating everything that you just said prior to that, which is to automate what you're doing and you're driving, and then but by the way, you're going to have to still drive the car.
Safety
Same thing
concerns.
about the disclaimers is always so frustrating. It's like people don't want to put anything on the line.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that this also scenario comes with it. Perhaps it's a higher stakes scenario, right? Like we're now talking about driving and self-driving. So I wonder how much of that also impacts the criticality of what we're saying, right? Whereas if it's a movie recommendation, that maybe it's okay. But now that we're like, I think that the risk associated with some of these also can impact how we might want to talk about them. But yeah, I totally agree. I think it does talk a lot about the tech. I wonder how, if folks have thoughts on a different way you might have mentioned that last sentence at the end. Does anyone have thoughts on that?
It's interesting that it blames it on regulation rather than like the current state of the technology. I mean, maybe the current state of the technology for this particular car is better than like other cars. But it does seem to like blame it on the government.
Yeah. That I didn't even think about that, but that was a great point. Yes, Justine.
For this type of thing, I like to make like a value sandwich. So there should be like I like this heading, like the future of driving is here, but instead of like the aspects of what it comes with, it should be like finally a way to relax on your commute. Here's what we can do. Here's what we're not allowed to do yet. Here's why you should be excited, and just kind of like tie it back up instead of, again, getting sort of lost in the sauce of all the details.
Yeah. Absolutely. Value sandwich. I don't think I've heard that, but yes, I hear you. Awesome. Okay. For time, I'm going to move us along. I'm going to quickly fly over the rest of the deck so that I can have enough time at the end for questions. Does that sound good to everyone? Okay. Sweet. Okay. So you'll see there's more examples here. Again, I would totally encourage y'all share this with your team. I think it's always really interesting conversations that hopefully are separate enough from your products so people can be a little bit more just focused on some of these patterns themselves. The other just too I want to quickly fly over is just investing early in good data practices. And so the better your data planning collection processes, the higher quality your end output. So some of the things that we do here is, or some of the recommendations we have here is ensuring that you have the right data set. So having in-domain data, considering how you're labeling data. And I think that can also be really important depending on what your data set is and how you might classify those. So I will again continue to fly over. The other really big trade-off that some of you might need to be considering as well is precision versus recall. And what that essentially means at a very, very high level is whether or not accuracy is important or quantity is important. And so the one on the left is saying, you know what, we just really need to be as accurate as possible, as precise as possible. So it might be a smaller set, but we have a higher confidence that we are accurate. Versus in the recall side, we think quantity might be important here. So it's okay if some of these things are false positives, but we have we know that all of our true positives are also captured. So I think these are some trade-offs to also consider depending on the use cases for your products and solutions. So I'll fly over. Oh goodness, why do you keep dimming on me? Okay. All right, so I'll fly over all of these. And the other really last one I'll mention is being accountable for errors. You might not be able to preempt everything that could go wrong. And like I said, especially if it's something that is a mismatched expectation. So the system thinks it's correct, but it doesn't match the user's expectation. So really being aware of the types of errors that can occur and a plan for how you might resolve it, whether it's just providing a way forward. So if users flag something, giving them a way to continue that journey, or even making changes to the product itself based off of some of that feedback. So we have some examples here. Okay. Sorry, I had to fly over that in like 2 seconds. But again, I'll share the deck, and all of this and more is in the guidebook, which I would very much encourage y'all to check out. But I'll stop here if there's any questions or anything that y'all want to chat about.
I would have a question about guardrails. So like, can you theoretically mine your own corpus of data and kind of, I don't know, dip into other data sets without, I mean, like I'm looking to lower risk essentially. So more accuracy, fewer results, but better results maybe.
Yeah, so sorry, remind me what the question is here.
I mean, the question is, can you still call it AI at that point?
Okay. Okay.
Like depending on like, so if we're talking smaller data versus bigger data, like
Yeah, and I think that's where this precision recall trade-off is really interesting, at least for me. Is that when we are wanting to, and again, it depends on your use case, right? So we have this example here where it's similar to, it's recommending workouts for you. So there's one thing I could suggest is that when you optimize for precision, so it is a smaller set, we are saying that we only want to show you running groups, for example. We might exclude things that fit the criteria because of it. But one thing that we can do to mitigate that is enable ways to include results that might have been excluded, right? So the example here is that saying like, we're just showing you what we think is highly accurate. Do you want to see everything? So it allows people a way to expand the set that we might have preemptively cut down for accuracy's sake. On the flip side, if we were to say like, you know what, recall is more important. So we'll see like here, where it's only 15, but we know, those are really relevant to you versus 803. So let's say like this is more important for our use because we want to show abundance. We want to give people optionality. What a technique here to help people focus is perhaps giving them a way to exclude false positives that may have been included. So whether that is a thumbs up, thumbs down, or another mechanism. So there's a way that you can kind of, depending on whether you optimize for precision or recall, can still allow for either expanding or condensing that set.
Yeah,
Does that help?
okay. Yeah, that does. And I'm wondering too if it would even be appropriate to give like kind of a confidence bar, like we're feeling 96% confident about this one, but only 20%. I mean, I see Google doing that in recommendations on Google Maps, for example.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it's something that we unfortunately didn't have a chance to talk about a bit more today, but there's some content in the guidebook about how we show confidence. And I think that in itself is super interesting, whether we use numerical variables like percentages or categorical, saying that high versus medium versus low, or even just like trying to expose the data set, right? Like we don't actually have a lot of information here. So think maps, for example. We might suggest a trail, but we're like, we don't have a lot of information about this location, so don't trust this route. So there's a lot of ways that we can showcase our confidence, and so that's where user research can really help determine what way of showing confidence helps users make decisions effectively. Because sometimes percentages can be confusing to understand, right? Like, is 70% good or bad? I don't know. So I think that is another really absolutely of showing our confidence. I'm just making it adding a little bit nuance there of like how you show confidence can also vary just depending on your users and their ability to act on that information.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Okay, well, like I said, y'all, I will share the deck, share the guidebook. Thank you all for having me today. I always love any opportunity to talk about this stuff. And I wish you all the best of luck. It's such an exciting time, but also, with great power comes great responsibility. And especially with LLMs and that whole world. So just wishing you all the best of luck. Hope that this resource can be helpful to all of y'all. And hope you have a good rest of your day and a good weekend.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mina, for for
Yeah,
being here and sharing your knowledge and insight. So awesome. Just wrapping everything up here for us. If you could, I just posted the link to post feedback. Please, like if you have the time, like a couple minutes, just write something. It's really important for us to kind of make things better for you guys. And yeah, really grateful that everyone came today. Thanks for showing up and participating. Super awesome to see these ideas kind of flowing back and forth. You can also register in that link for the Women's Founder Community. And you basically can use like the Slack channel to connect and join that channel. So we'll send the slide deck out to everyone in the recording later this week, but hope everyone has a good rest of your Thursday, and we'll see you guys soon. So appreciate it.
Thank you all.
Thank you. See you guys later.
Bye.